Wetiko, bro, I haven't talked to you in a very long time, man. So I'm excited for this one. First of all, man, how you been?
Good man. Good man. How are you?
I'm good, bro. I'm actually coming back from Joshua Tree. I was out there for like 2 days. Went out there to unwind and just kind of like relax, stay off of my phone for a bit, and it was great. What have you been up to?
Oh, I've been hiding away, painting, grinding. I actually just got a local mural, so I was on site painting a mural the past 3 nights. Um, just wrapped that up, so I'm kind of back in the studio now.
That's dope. That's one thing that with you, I've always had a lot in common with because we kind of work between both worlds. So I kind of want to take this conversation into that perspective, like what it's been like for you to work in both sides and kind of like how you are mixing things. Because to be honest, right now, everything's kind of experimental. So, and I know you've been in Solana for quite some time as well. So, I just recently, like these last 2 months, I've been heavy in real life, like doing different kind of things. And so I kind of want to get, an update how it's been, bro. So, how has it been?
It's been good, man. Luckily, I onboarded into Solana because my mural career slowed down. I was in a position where I had a really big job lined up. I moved across the country. I moved from Portland back to Detroit for this really big job. Apologies for this little minion. Um, but I moved to Detroit, getting ready for this big gig, and it fell through. And and then another big mural I had lined up also fell through. And so I didn't really know what else to do, and kind of got into the scene that way, like trying to sell art and see what was going on in NFT land, and try to make a name for myself there. So, and obviously, like it took care of me pretty well. I got really busy. I started making a name for myself, and I've been working really hard in this space for the past like year and a half or so now. So, the murals have been slow. I've only done like a few decent sized murals in the past year and a half, so it's given me enough time to kind of like build what am trying to accomplish here on Solana and within the NFT space. And now murals are just starting to trickle in again. So I'm really only just now starting to feel that like, okay, how am I going to navigate this balance between the two?
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I definitely get that because just like you, the past 8 to 10 months, I was heavy in Web3, and then all of a sudden I just went straight back into painting. I was like, oh shit, like this is, I remember this, like this is a whole part of me now. So how can I do both and kind of grow at the same time? So I know it's not easy, but it is exciting because I feel like, at least for me, when I got tired of this medium, not tired of it, but just kind of like not as inspired, when I went back to painting, bro, it just brought all that back out of me. Um, do you have, a similar feeling when we go back and forth? Especially now that Mira's starting to, come back and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in good harmony. I can't imagine the mural stuff really like taking away too much time. Like even my big murals will only take up a week's worth of time, and so it's I think it'll be pretty easy for me to balance. Like the work that I do within Solana, it's been built to be, I create a lot of work. I normally average like at least one, but normally two auctions a week. Like I'm releasing something a couple times a week, and I've been consistent with that since the very beginning. Um, and because the work that I enjoy creating is pretty quick. It's either like a fast abstract or even stuff that's more detailed, like my Edis and things of that nature are pretty small. They're just 12 by 12 inch. Like everything that I create is ready to be shipped. So I create smaller pieces now so I can afford shipping and I don't have to put that on my collectors. Um,
Yeah, I
so
feel.
so
I
I feel
mean,
like I can kick out work. If I know
yeah,
that I'm going to paint a mural for a week, I know that I can kind of produce a few paintings to like so I can continue out my auctions schedule and then go and hustle and paint a mural here and there. I'm not like overly stressed about the organization of it all.
Yeah, 100%. And before we get into like the details of your process, because I know you have a pretty unique process, um, let's run it back, like way back. Can you tell me the first moment that you felt that you wanted to become an artist? And then from that, like, what did you create for the first time, if you can remember?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, I've been an artist my whole life, you know, it's a big part of my childhood, coloring, drawing, like drawing comics, and, you know, I kind of excelled at that at a young age, drawing, like doodling for kids in school and stuff. It wasn't until probably like my freshman year of high school that I went to a private school my freshman year, and they had like one basic art. It was very like advanced school, had like all the math and science and bullshit, and I was like really looking for art courses, and it just wasn't going to happen. And that's when I kind of was like, no, I need to be focusing more and more on this. So I ended up going to like one of the public schools in my hometown had a great art program and great art teacher, and so pretty much like sophomore year of high school through senior year, I was taking as much art as possible. It was probably like end of junior year when you start thinking about college and stuff that I was like, I had my heart set on. Detroit has an amazing art school, College for Creative Studies. Um, so I had my heart kind of set on that. Um, and so to answer your question, I would say probably, you know, that middle of high school is when I was like, okay, this is like what I'm going to pursue. As far as first piece of art, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. Like I've always really been into to paint. You know, I'm more of a, you know, messier person than I always struggle with illustration and single line stuff. Like I'm much more like big textural things, big brushes, spray paint. The mess of it all is kind of what I gravitate towards.
Yeah, because your style, it's like there's structure to it, but you can tell that it's also very abstract. Like you kind of wing it in the moment, and then I also read on your Twitter that you actually do live streams, right, of the creative process. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm getting more into that. You know, I've had like all the equipment to be able to stream for a while now, and I've always struggled with finding an audience. So I've kind of picked it up, and it's fallen off like so many times over the past, I don't know, 8 or 10 years or something, because I struggled with the audience building and finding people interested in that. So it just kind of discouraged me from turning my camera on. I just worked more solo. But I feel like with the audience built through Web3 and the friends and community that I've been connecting with over the past year and a half, like I feel like there's finally a bit of an audience, which has really come true. Like I do have people showing up and finding interest in it, and there's actual topics to talk about because you know people might want to come into the room to ask questions about like marketing or like how to you know do certain things within the art world that aren't specific to hand painting. You know, there's not a ton of traditional painters on Solana, so there's other topics to talk about and other things that can come up that people may want to jump into my stream and kind of pick my brain about. So that's when I open things up to the world. Like I always mention, you know, I'm also hosting Twitter Spaces Saturday and Sunday mornings now for people to have that access to me. But the live streaming is the other place where I'm like, if you have any questions or just want to shoot the shit, like come here during this, and we can kind of dish out any concerns or any questions you may have.
No, I definitely understand what you're saying because, as an artist doing a live stream of you just actually doing it, shows a lot more than talking about it. So, if you're actually painting there, going through your process, showing your process, like some of your techniques and stuff, like it might open up a door for somebody else, but the fact that the attention is just not there is insane, bro. Like there's so much value there. Not only that, but like you're letting people inside into your mind, like, yo, how'd you do this? Like, how do you run that? These are all things that you picked up along the way. So the fact that Web3 is like that, where people are so giving of information, like I think that's what attracts me into it the most. And so I think you're heading towards the right direction, bro, with your community and stuff because I've seen you like since the beginning, bro. You never stopped, and I took a little break and came back, and you're still going strong. So shout out to you one time. Hold up, let me send you some hearts.
I appreciate you, man. Yeah, it's a full time full-time gig for me. I'm definitely in it. I've had some highs and some lows, like it is a tough market. I'm pretty grateful right now that I still have collectors that are looking, my prices have come down a bit, but like we're grinding and I'm still releasing work at the same rate that I have been throughout all of this. So, and I definitely continue to do so.
That's awesome, man. So let's talk about your current things that you're working on. Or I remember you were doing the Edith and Lover series, right? Is that still ongoing, or did you stop that and start something new?
No, I mean that's pretty much my full-time project. Every so often I'll be dropping little like collaborations, or I have a few other collections that I like to give some attention to as well. But that's what you can pretty much always rely on is there will be an Edith and a love and or a lover once a week. Because I have 200 of them to get through, and I don't want this to be a 10-year project. So um, rain or shine, some once a week there will be an Edith or a lover coming out. And yeah, just a couple days ago, or was it yet? Yeah, 2 nights ago, I sold lover or Edith number 66 out of 100 to Brad B. And then I think lover is in the late 20s at this point. I'd have to double check on that. Um, but yeah, we're cruising through the lovers as well. Um, So yeah, we're almost halfway through the Edith and Lover project.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know it gets repetitive, bro, but for those who don't know the series and like what comes with it, can you explain that whole process of like how you create and how each piece is backed up by actual physical and stuff?
Yeah, of course. Um, so pretty much everything that I do on Solana is backed by physical art. There were a few pieces in the very beginning that I minted when I didn't really know what I was doing. I was minting old art that other people have collected or this and that. But as soon as I started the Edith series, it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I want whether the collector wants the physical shipped to them or not, like they own it, right? So um, I was really inspired by the PFP projects and like just kind of the buzz that happened within Solana. And so this is kind of my version, I guess, of a PFP project. I created a character called Edith, and I knew right away I was going to do like 100 of these. And once things kind of started moving, and I realized that I wanted a little bit more like engagement behind it, like a little bit more of a story. So I created a second character called Lover. And because Edith is very like she's the main character, right? It's kind of like a matriarchal story. So like there's no like male name for Lover. It's just that's just her counterpart, her lover. And if a collector collects one of each, they can commission me to do a story. Um, so because each Edith and each lover is so uniquely different, it'll have this fun kind of dynamic where a collector can pick and choose like which ones they really vibe with, and then in the end, I'll create like a third painting for them that's inspired by the two. Whether it's like maybe they collect two really abstract Ediths, so it'll be a very abstract story, or something that's more technical, or different themes will come together, and so that's really like watching the stories come out. That's really the kind of like end goal, the end result. It should be like the most fun pieces to kind of um, pay attention to. And the stories also split sales cost and royalties with the collector. So it's this really cool dynamic where I can collaborate with a collector who may not be an artist, who just is in it to enjoy fine art and support artists and invest in in some art. So it's a cool way to get back because the stories come out as editions. There'll be 25 editions of each one. That way, the physical is available to ship to the collector. Um, and yeah, some collectors will never be tied to royalties for anything because they're not creating art. So I think it's a cool thing for a collector to like see some type of kickback of royalties as like this project progresses and my career progresses. I think it's a pretty exciting thing to offer. Um, so that's kind of, I feel like the quick and easy version of it. It's a little complex, it helps to kind of see the bigger picture. Um, But yeah, there will be a 100 Ediths, 100 lovers, and then if they all come together, there could potentially be 100 stories, but time will tell with that.
Bro, that's insane. Can you imagine that piece? You put them all together into like one viewing. That'd be insane. Like that's something that people need to see like in person, man. Because how long do you think it would actually take you to finish this series? Just based on the time that you worked on the previous ones before. Um, the accumulation of work is what I'm trying to ask. How much do you think that is? How many days or how many months?
I'm kind of picturing this whole thing from start to finish being about a 4-year project. Um, it's looking like it'll probably be about 2.5 to 3 years to complete all Ediths and all the lovers. And like the stories is going to be the trickier thing to kind of gauge. Because I also have to, because these come out as editions, I really have to pay attention to supply and demand, which is like a little bit more of the tricky aspect of it. Because I can't just like end the project and then start dropping 25 editions every week. Like I could and and just see what happens, but I'm also really conscious of that. That's why there's only been 6 stories. We're in a kind of tough market right now, so I like the stories editions to sell out and then wait a period of time until like the market seems right for like a new set of editions, and then I kind of go to my collectors and ask who's ready, kind of deal. Um, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I think it's about a 3-year project for just to finish Edith and Lovers. I'm Yeah, like I said, I've been going pretty strong with Edith for a little over a year now, and I'm at like 80 some, about 90 pieces out of the 200.
Damn it, that's sick. And something just came to my mind, man. How difficult it actually is to be an artist in Web3 because chances are because there's so many variables that we don't control. At the end of the day, we're building on Solana, right? Crypto goes up, goes down. Like there's so many different things that are kind of stacked against us, and at the same time, we're supposed to create something dope and then run the logistics, the business, the community. Like it's insane, man. So it's like anybody who's in Web3 and has been an artist in it over a year, like shout out to you guys because it's just hard. It's not easy. And so, how are you? Like, how's your mindset right now, bro? Like after being in it for such a long time now, because I feel like 1 year in Web3 is almost like 3 years in real life, man.
Yeah, it's been a tricky one. I kind of, um, luckily, I saw this potentially happening. I've done a lot of projects where I experienced burnout or I need to take a few months off or this and that. And I kind of set up the structure of Edith with that in mind, which I'm so glad that I did. My whole thing behind it is I want each one to be so uniquely different. So I've been able to continuously stay inspired. If I'm like really feeling, soft pastels or really feeling collage art, or if I want to do it, I do so many different styles, and I was afraid if I did one thing and had to do 100 versions of one thing, like I would probably lose my mind at this point. But because I've set it up to where there's only these two little outlines that make up an Edith, and as long as those are in the painting I'm creating, like I nailed it. That's an Edith, and I ship it out. So I'm glad that I set it up that way because I haven't felt burnout yet. There's been a couple lulls, where it's been harder to sit down to make one, and other times like I just have so many ideas, like I can go on a tear. Um, but luckily, it's been pretty smooth sailing so far.
I think that's very smart because it sounds like a new expressionism where you're kind of intaking what you're intaking, using that as inputs, and then you're creating based off of that. It's refreshingly new for you each time because it changes, right? What you're being inspired by, like I'd assume pretty much everything, right? From books, TV, whatever you see here, you can throw it down onto your pieces, because it has that abstraction style to it, and that's how the story actually gets built and becomes unique. So for you, it's a one on one each time. So I can see how that's not burning you out because you're actually doing something different each time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's almost like, artists normally have sketchbooks where they just kind of sit down and dish out whatever's on their mind. They just kind of spit out things. There's no pressure. Like, it's just kind of like, here's what's going on today. Here's my creative expression for the day. And that's kind of what Edith has become, is my sketchbook in a way. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself about it. Like, there's some bangers in the collection and there's some other ones that I don't really care for, but there's a collector who really does, and I love that. Like, people who collect from this series, like, see it as this big picture project. You know what I mean? Like, I I think that I would like to think each one of my collectors really resonates and loves the one that they collected. But I like that kind of no pressure. My community is fucking awesome. Like, I don't feel this weight of like, oh, you can't go below this price, or that, there's like, just, they're all passionate about what I'm doing and just let me do my thing. I had all these dreams of building kind of this, having a big structure behind it and having utility and doing like, also doing what you would see in other PFP projects. But the more I got to know my collectors and who was really bullish on the project, like, they were very, very hands off and let me do my thing. And so I feel really fortunate for the community that has kind of picked me up and supported me along this. Yeah, like, it's a very stress free kind of sketchbook project. And if I want to do something more in the fine art realm or something more conceptual, or a collection that's very organized, then, I step away and do a piece like that. I have other collections that I personally feel stay way more true to like my career path, or what I want to do. But I think that Edith is just super iconic, and I can see why people want to collect and be a part of this project.
Exactly right there, that end part. Like once they collect, they're actually part of the project. They're part of the story. And so if your collector is seeing this super big picture, which as they should, man, because you're just continue to create and create, and that's really what they want to see, right? Just you doing your thing. And so but the fact that you were able to curate that for yourself as a community is amazing. So for, let's say, like, for somebody new trying to enter the space as a digital artist, what would you say to them? What's your one or two pieces of advice for them?
Um, that's tricky, man. I think it's really different for each individual person, but I like for people to not. I kind of go against the grain. I know a lot of advice is in the realms of, you want a very recognizable style. You want to control your supply and demand. Like, kind of the real traditional sense of like how to make it as an artist. Which definitely works if you have a very desirable style within Solana. But Solana doesn't, it's so small that there's a lot of styles that people do really great work, but it just doesn't sell because there's not a market for that here. Or it's not like what all the other collectors are collecting and all that. So within this space in particular, I really kind of recommend for artists to just have fun and express themselves in every way that they know possible. If there's one style that's not doing well for them, like when they have these other styles, they're like, I hear a lot of people where they're like, man, I can't release more. I have these three pieces sitting, they haven't sold. I don't want to like change lanes. And it's like, no, you got to keep experimenting, because as soon, like, it's all about momentum. So as soon as you start making a couple sales, even if they're cheap sales, you'll see where the demand is within this small market and roll out with that. So that's kind of like where I start to give advice within the space for new people, is to just poke and prod until
Yeah,
there's a little bit of
just
momentum.
create.
And yeah, exactly.
No, I think you're completely right. I think it is cool to have a game plan, right? Do some research and see what's working. But I feel like at the end of the day, if you do what you want to do and it happens to catch fire, like that's where you're really winning. And so it just takes a little bit of patience and kind of really just putting yourself out there continuously, which is why I really like Web3 as well, because how fast it is, right? People are actually dropping stuff weekly. Like you're dropping 2 pieces a week, and you're getting feedback by, how the auction does, or like how your Twitter post for the auction does. Like you're getting instant feedback from people in your community and outside. That that's amazing for artists because you get to really speed up the process of like, okay, what do I want my style to be? I guess at least for now, what's my series that I want to work on for the next year or two? And so I would just piggyback off what you said and say like, yeah, like just stay creative and keep putting stuff out there, especially in Web3, and just see what hits. And after that, really start to curate your community and just tap in.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I should kind of also state that I'm not saying mint 100 pieces a day and like just go ape shit. You still need to be intentional. You still have to do marketing and network and really put yourself out there. But if you really give a piece an honest effort of pushing it out into the community and it's not selling and if it's stressful for you, there's also no shame in burning a piece and moving on to the next and trying again. You know what I mean? And like until you find that type of momentum. Um, I think that that's just a decent strategy within the space. But I think also if you're intentional about it and you're organizing your collections in a really smart way, that's another big thing as well, where it's like you'll see some artists have collections where one floor price might be 100 sol and the other floor price might be 2 3 sol. You know what I mean? Just because like each collection can be its own little mini economy and have like a desirability for it, and it's like that's okay. So it's like if you're organizing your specific styles into very specific collections, I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable, and your collectors will be a lot more uh, appreciative of how you're organizing your body of work.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're creating a narrative, right? It's your story as a creator, and if it doesn't need to be all in sync, but it's kind of nice when you can see that, that hand was the same hand for the other piece, based on maybe color palette or just line work, or that certain something that really accentuates a certain artist. So for you, would you say, what would you say your current style form is? Like, what would you call it? I know it's abstract, but it's more to that.
Man, I've been struggling to define this my entire career. I don't know. I feel like I'm an abstract um, collage artist, I guess. Most of my work is collage based, and that's kind of becoming my most recognizable style. Um, I don't know, like it's like I've said, it's been a real struggle of mine throughout my entire career because I do so many different things and different styles, and it's I've been poking around, hearing a lot of people in spaces saying that I know that's a Wetiko piece. Like Wetiko has a very recognizable style, and like I almost just like sit there and melt in my seat, like just in awe and so grateful that like I've never heard that or thought that about my work until very recently, thanks to people in this space. Um, so I don't know. I'm a collage artist that messes it up with spray paint and brushes and that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, a lot of it, I feel like it's intuitive, and you just kind of roll with it, and when it's finished or not. Um, and but you do have a certain aesthetic to your stuff, so I can see why somebody would look at a certain piece like, yeah, that's a Wetico, because it's, I don't know, like for people that have seen your work at least maybe 2 3 times or so, like you can start to pick up on it, right? At least I have. It was cool. You can put a Wetico piece in front of me with 10 other pieces. I'm like, yeah, that's Wetico right there. So you do have a style, man. It's just to define it in words, it's a little bit difficult, right, to contextualize. But as so far as what that what you're producing, it's coming from the same place. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. It's I have this kind of phase in my creative process that I think it's kind of what defines my work, to where I design something. So this is like 90% of my work. I obviously do some different styles, but for the majority of my work, I design it digitally. I kind of outline it on a wood panel, and then I just start painting, and I paint most things pretty realistically. And then I have this moment in each piece where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to mess it up. And I'll get out a lot of messier mediums like spray paint, charcoal. I use a correction pen a lot. It's like, a whiteout pen. And I just scribble, or, spray paint. If you're working on a 12 by 12 inch canvas size, like there's only so much you can do with spray paint, and it's like scribbles, and I kind of mess the painting up. I give it a lot of texture, and sometimes I screw up certain parts, and then I fix what I don't like about the mistakes that I just made, and then that's when it's done. And I think that that's my style, whatever that whatever that means.
It's
Like,
like create something beautiful and then just disrupt it, and then just make it cool again afterwards.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's when like the texture and the life and everything really really kind of comes full circle, is in that moment. Sometimes I like what I do with spray paint and I call it done, but it's just this moment of like just getting loose again, because sometimes I get so technical and like so hyper focused in my paintings that in the end it's like it doesn't have life to it anymore. It's like I'm very just focused with a small brush, getting in like all these little details, and then I take a step back and it's like I'm not wowed by it, and it's like, okay, I need to like give some life to this. So I like just get messy with spray paint and scribbles and shit, and then I'm like, and then fix what I didn't like about what I just did, and then that's the final product.
Now, every time that you get into that phase, do you feel a little bit nervous, or just like not nervous, but a little rush of adrenaline because you're literally about to deface your painting with just a random action?
Oh yeah, every time. Yeah, literally every time. Because I don't have the biggest attention span, right? Like my body of work, it's rare that I'll spend more than 3 days on a painting. On average, I only like you said earlier, my stuff is very much in the moment. Like I have this concept and I spit it out. Like my work is very fast. It's very like in the moment, that sketchbook style where it's like I have this vision and I'm going to execute it, and I do it in like one sitting. Um, so if you're sitting there for 6, 8 hours, and then you get to this point where you're like, okay, now's the time, and I start spray painting and shit on it. Like sometimes the colors don't match well, or like I get too much overspray on like the portrait, like this eye I may have really liked, or like um, it's always a stressful moment. But I think that it's essential, and it's just part of the process that is brings it back to like an exciting state. I'll be so hyper focused for like 5 or 6 hours, and then it's this moment of like, I don't know, it's just this really interesting moment that I spend with each one of my paintings, and then once that's over, it's either magic or it's like, oh, okay, I fucked up, I need to fix these few things, and then it's done.
No, I know exactly how that feels like, because in the very early stages when I was doing the discombobulated pieces with the characters, right? I was going very technical. Like I had a plan, I had the colors and stuff, and it was cool. It looked visually cool, but it was missing that human essence to it, right? Like the actual energy into it. And so I remember getting some paint and just like I was just kind of frustrated. I said, "Fuck it," and I just hit it, and I just kept going, and it got all messy, and then I went back to it again and started to clean it up, and then I realized like, yo, this is actually pretty fire, and that moment of just fucking it all up brought so much intensity and energy into it that I was like, bro, this is insane, and so that's what started that series, and I just never stopped from there.
I love it, man. Yeah, we have, we have different styles, but we definitely have similar styles in the same sense. Like I do really admire your work and what you do, and I feel like we have a lot of the same inspirations and everything, and I'm glad that you kind of experienced that. You know that feeling as well, of just like getting like you kind of need that looseness. If you lose that looseness, you might as well be doing digital art, um, because it's clean and crisp. You know, like you're executing clean illustrations, and it's you can definitely do it digitally, but like it's that organic nature that comes with traditional painting that you just can't mimic. There's like huge gestural arm movements, and your whole body is like, you know, you're shaking a can and you're like you're spraying them from across the room and like throwing paint. Like it's just different, you know what I mean? Like it can be mimicked digitally, but there's a lot that happens with traditional painting that like is just way more organic, and I like that. I like spotting that, within pieces I find in this space.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. And there's times where I'll feel like I over mess up a painting, and I'm just forced to, wait till it dries and finish it because I don't like how it looks. But it's been a few times like that where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this last whatever, like the action stuff, and then let it dry. I'll come back to it, But it doesn't look good, and I get frustrated even more in that moment. I'm just like, damn, bro, like, should I have done that? I start to second guess myself. I'm just like, man, and then I don't know, some way somehow you just end up figuring it out and finishing it.
Yeah, it always comes together, and if it doesn't, it's, you know, it's in a tube, a rolled up canvas in a tube somewhere in your basement you'll forget about. But it's pretty rare. I pretty much release everything I do. I feel like I've probably only maybe only two paintings in the past year and a half that I not complete and release. Um, but yeah, I pretty much get everything out the door because I feel like it's that it's a moment captured, and you know I like to let the community decide like what's worthy and what's not, and you know it's a kind of vulnerable spot to be in, but I like that. I like to see that and kind of engagement. And I've been really fortunate enough that, you know, there's been a collector out there for, it wasn't like that in the first month or whatever, but since I built up a little tribe, like there will be a collector for each piece, which I love and I'm grateful for.
Nah, I feel you. Um, so what's something that you're currently working on right now, or like what do the next 2 to 3 months look like for you, as far as your creative arts, your career, what you're currently doing, and if you have a plan or some type of idea of a direction, talk about that for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple decent murals that look like are gonna land. So I'm wrapping up one right now. It's a private corporate wall, and then I'm actually painting. It's looking like I'm going to paint uh, the inside of a private basketball court in a couple weeks, and then I might have a big wall down in Tampa in the fall. Um, but in Web3 specifically, you know, because I'm working on such an ambitious project, I am, you know, pretty focused on that. So it's going to be a lot of Ediths and Lovers, just cranking through that. I'm a little behind on one of my favorite collections called Stare. It's like one of my more um, really detailed, portrait paintings, very clean. And I was going pretty good with it. I think there's four now, and I have the photo for the fifth one. That's on my to-do list for sure. I would like to get another stare out soon. And then I'm supposed to do four new paintings for something that's a little, it's a private thing right now. It will be released in the next couple of months, but I was asked to create three or four pieces for something in particular. So I had need to take a step away from Edith Lover to put those together. Um, but yeah, I mean, nothing, it's just kind of one day at a time. I have a lot of work that I need to create, and you'll mostly be seeing Edith and Lover as a regular thing. But there will be these kind of nice little treats trickled in a couple of my other collections. Um, and also, you know, I'll be doing another Ethereum drop in the near future as well. Um,
Oh, wait, I didn't know you dropped on Ethereum. When did you do that?
I did my first piece maybe it was right before NFT NYC, so maybe first thing April. I did my first piece there, and it did great as far as like the price tag on it, but it was a Solana collector that came over there and supported me. I didn't get a whole lot of recognition from the ETH community around it, which I was expecting, and I'm not upset about it. I didn't do a ton of promotion. I tried my best, joining some different discords and waiting in line in a couple ETH shill spaces that I never made it around to completing. But yeah, so I am interested in releasing over there, like just trying to grow my audience a bit. I think that there's a little bit less of sticker shock in that community if I can make a name for myself. Um, but it's not Solana's home, and I'm pretty bullish on Solana long term. Like I definitely want to be recognized and known as like predominantly, Edith and Lover will always be, and Stories will always be on Solana. Um, so this is definitely my home, but I feel like it's smart to kind of trickle my work out in other areas. So I have my own like separate collection over there, for a different body of work.
Yeah, I think it's smart to expand and explore. It's smart for any creator to really do. So for your mural pieces, when you do them, do you do them by yourself or do you take somebody? What's the process with that?
It depends on the scale and the style. I have a graffiti artist friend here in Detroit that is just like, I mean, that's been his thing his whole life. He's been a graffiti writer for like 20 years. He can just freehand like some of the just cleanest, sexiest letters, and that there's a real art to that. And I am inspired by graffiti. I've painted graffiti for years. Like it's means a lot to me, but I'm not an illustrator, and I struggle with letters. So if I'm ever doing a piece where the client wants a lot of specific words, or like I have one style where I kind of fill the wall with graffiti and then I wash over it and I make it dirty and then do a painting on top of that. I'll bring him on board to help me do big fills for that. We'll both just like throw on a mask and just fill a whole wall with graffiti, and so he's kind of my go-to spray painting help. I've done a couple other big walls where I'll bring on an assistant to help do fills or things of that nature, but for the most part, I'm a solo mural artist. I just get out there and do it.
That's amazing, bro. And what about the like fine art scene? Because I think honest, what I've seen, you create, I feel like there's definitely a market for you in that space, especially because of your process. You know how you create your pieces. But I know it's difficult to really get stuff going in that side. Like, would you ever be opposed to like doing a show in person, like a gallery showing or something like that?
No, I'm definitely not opposed to it. It's just never been a big part of my career. I struggle with it. I'm agoraphobic. I have bad anxiety, panic attacks leaving my house. So like getting out and like I don't know how it is in other cities, but here in Detroit, it's pretty cutthroat. There's a big artist community, but they're very much like good friends. It's kind of like a tight social circle that's hard to penetrate, and I
Well,
just don't get out.
extremely hard.
Yeah, I just don't get out enough. I'm like I can make friends, but I don't get out enough to be like recognized as a Detroit artist. I stick to home, and I struggle with the gallery circuit because it's like I'm just not a part of that like club. So it's always been hard for me to penetrate that. I've done some solo shows, I've done some group shows. It's been a part of my journey, but it wasn't until I started painting murals where I was like, okay, like I can now pay my bills with my art, and I luckily that career just kind of took off, um, as opposed to like making big gallery sales. So I just followed that path. Um, and I made some really great connections in the sense of like the majority of the work that I do is interior corporate. Like the 90+% of my murals are private. Um, so I'm still not recognized in the art community because I'm not doing big public walls. You know, I'm making good money as a mural artist, but nobody sees my work. I can put it on websites and this and that, but even in the mural world is also very similar to the gallery world, where it's that kind of cool kids club. That's what I call it. It's annoying, but that's kind of how like I was living in Eastern Market, Detroit, which is like this really cool part of Detroit. They have this mural festival every year. I was living there. I showed them my body of work, and like they gave like 100 people murals, and they didn't give me a shot. And I was just like, man, I've been a like living mural artist, like
That's
paying my
crazy.
bills for 4+ years. I have the portfolio that I think is quality, and like they just, they didn't give me the time of day. I really have been outcast as an artist in this city. Um, but fuck it, I'm like, it kicks my ego a little bit because I would like to be recognized in that kind of, have those types of accolades. But I'm here doing pretty well for myself, painting corporate murals and like grinding in Web3. So, it is what it is.
Exactly, bro. It is what it is. You're still creating, doing your thing, and that's the best that you can do. When you think about it, you're able to live off of doing what you love. So that right there is already a big. So the fact that now you're structuring, trying to figure out, all right, what's the next thing, right? Like, how can I get to the next level? It's really just by doing it, being in it day by day, and it's a business. Yeah, you're having fun with it, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So shout out to you for still doing it because it's not easy.
No, I appreciate it. I'm very grateful. I don't like it doesn't that whole aspect doesn't beat me up that much. Like I'm very proud of myself and happy that, I was able to buy a house in like today's economy and like live my life how I want to live it, and, by creating art. So it's like it would be cool to be recognized, but I don't really care. Like I am fine. I kind of feel like I've accomplished so many of my goals of being able to make this happen for myself. And I kind of picture this day when I have all 200 Edith and Lovers done. And the cool thing, like a lot of my collectors have me store their physicals. So, I mean, I have like 40, 50 plus of these things sitting around my house. So I'm like picturing 2 years from now, renting out a dope ass building in Detroit and throwing like the most impressive gallery show with 100+ Edith and Lovers
Bro,
lined up on a wall with the
let
stories
us
and like just,
know, bro. We may even sponsor that because by then
dude.
ODK is gonna be major. So that
I'm
definitely let
thinking
us
the
know.
same for my Wetiko holders, man. I'm going to try to do some type of release to pull in funds to be able to
Yes,
get as many of these people out here. And like, I'll
bro.
make a
We'll
name
make
for
it a
myself with that
huge
show,
event. It'd
dude.
be crazy.
Yeah, dude. That's kind of my end goal. I was like, I'll show Detroit what the fuck I've been doing for, like I'll make a name for myself here. And I'll probably try to find a big ass wall to slap like a 4-story Edith up somewhere in the city. Um,
In
so
conjunction with the show and everything, it'd be crazy. But like, you literally take over just like that. It's insane. But no, I'm happy for you, bro. Just continue doing it because that's all you can really do. And for the murals, what was the question I wanted? Oh, okay, yeah. So for the murals, because that's something I didn't really dive into. I went from graffiti to, just fine art, just based on like one opportunity. But I didn't get to do the whole mural stuff that much. Can you take somebody new through that process real quick before you close out? There's a kid out there that is good at graffiti or has a certain style, and he's wondering how can I get mural gigs? Like, what's that whole process?
yeah, my advice for folks trying to get into the mural world is um, is to network within your group of people to try to find a wall, like just as big as possible, or like whatever you're comfortable with. Like there's within your network, you should be able to find it. It could be somebody the back of somebody's garage or somebody's basement wall, or like it might not be grand and glorious, but just try to go as big as possible. Or, if you are a graffiti artist and you're doing a bunch of illegal stuff, like start documenting that and building a website. That's really like the biggest thing is to showcase your work in a most professional way possible. So it might not be graffiti pictures, but if that's what you got, people definitely hire for that as well. But put together a nice site, show your work in a professional manner, and then start shopping that around. The route that I found the most success is networking within like builders and interior designers, and that's why the majority of my work is corporate, because I work with the same builders and interior designers in the corporate space that are doing these big build outs for tech companies and this and that, who like all these up like new this young entrepreneur world who are doing tech startups and all these things are like they want the cool hip, like lounge with the pool table, and they want their offices to be fucking cool for the youngsters, join the space. So they want the graffiti, they want the murals, the color, this and that. um, and those are the people who have the big money. It's hard to get public art. A lot of times you're dealing with the city and you're dealing with a bunch of people who have budgets they have to work with. But if you can get set up with those folks who are, doing $1 million build out for their, from moving from their basement into their first
Yeah,
big
for
like
them
tech
it's
hub.
just like a tax write off, bro. It's like a win-win.
Exactly. And like those are the people with the budgets. And like, so I always say put together the best portfolio, and wherever you're at, you're the closest city to you, start pushing that stuff towards. And there's a whole world for it. Corporate interior design is like different than home interior design. Like there's people who do this professionally, and they're always looking for artists and like people to help grow their brand as well. So that's kind of my go-to of how to get yourself out there. But you need to prove that you can do it, right? So you do need to find that person who's going to give you a big wall for free, or you do need that, that helping hand in the very beginning to show that you can do it. And once you have that, I think that it's a lot easier to kind of sell yourself to people who have the bigger funds.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for the free game. So you guys heard it here first. Build up your portfolio and document the process. Get pics, get yourself a website, and then just start hitting people up. Start hitting up companies like with walls and try to make it happen. So we're just about under an hour. So if there's anybody that wants to come up and ask a question, do so now. If not, we're gonna close this out. Um, Wetiko, bro, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. It's good to see you around the space. Um, I'm
Yeah, I
loving this
missed
One
it.
Dope
I
Kids
missed it,
shit.
man. Yeah, man. We have a lot coming. The next couple of weeks are gonna get kind of crazy, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so before we close this out, I always like to ask this question of, um, if you can speak to young Wetiko, uh, for one chance, like what would you tell them? What any advice or statement or anything that you want to say to them?
Oof. Um, the realest thing I could think, man, is take care of your mental health. I feel like I went a lot of years with just closeting that shit, like just having anxiety and like dealing with depression and being like, no, you're a man, like this is life, you'll be fine, this and that, and like not getting help that I needed for so many years, and I'm paying for that in my older age, like doing that work that I should have been doing as a young lad. That's probably the realest thing I could say. But then also just that kind of pat on the back, and it's like you're gonna do it, man. Like I'm uh I'm pretty proud of what I've accomplished in my life, and I feel like I was pretty scared of all that at a young age. Of like, I wanted to be an artist my whole life, and I went through all of my 20s of not making it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I was 31 years old that I got my first break. Like, so I think that's great advice too for younger folks who are feeling super discouraged. And like, if you look at a lot of the contemporary artists that are crushing it, like they're in their 40s and 50s because they've been fucking grinding their whole lives and like staying true to themselves. So I think that's like really great closing advice. Is if you're not making breaks at a young age, like just keep doing it because sometimes it takes a while.
Bro, beautiful. Wetiko, man, thank you for your time. And yeah, much love to everybody here. I know we're getting into the weekend, so have a great weekend and stay dope.